believed that this would be that Jesus and Muhammad and Krishna and all of these different figures, they believe that they all were inspired by what they call the Christ principle or the Christ spirit or Christ consciousness. Mm-hmm. Okay, that they themselves were not Christ. They don't believe that Jesus is the Christ. They believe that he was just somebody who was inspired by this energy, but that the real Christ figure is the Buddha, is Maitreya Buddha, and that he will ultimately, when he comes into the world, he'll be a global Messiah that appeals to all the world religions and is able to unite all the world religions. That's what they believe.
It's just crazy to me that, some people will act like, oh, religion has no stance. We need to, especially in this movement, they'll say, oh, religion needs to go if we ever want to progress to man. But what they never really want to address is that those who are in the upper echelons of power, the true elite, they are religious, and their religion is this occult religion. And like you said, they do believe of the coming of this Maitreya figure. I mean, how can we get around that? How can we relate to people that, hey, even if you're not religious, even if you're secular, you don't subscribe to Christianity or Buddhism, or you're not a Muslim or a Jew, how do we get to those people that this is what they believe?
Yeah, that's a tough one. One of the arguments that I make is I try to explain to people that the whole doctrine, the idea of a separation of church and state, people hear that and they think it means removing religion from government. And that's not what it means. What it means, if you study these societies, it means removing the church, i.e. Christianity, getting Christianity out of American government. But they want, like when you go into Washington, D.C., and you're seeing all of these god and goddess images and so on. I mean, these are all religious symbols.
Yeah, it's including the goddess Persephone, which is on the top of the Capitol building. A lot of people don't even realize that.
Right. You go out in front of the courthouse, they had this big deal in front of courthouses, right, getting rid of the Ten Commandments in front of the courthouse. Mm-hmm. But right next to the Ten Commandments, they have a statue of Themis, the blindfolded goddess holding the scales. Mm-hmm. That's the ancient goddess of justice. But nobody ever says anything about getting rid of her. The ACLU is not leading a crusade to get rid of all the religious iconography. They're just trying to get rid of Christianity or Judeo-Christianity, biblical values and teachings and so on. But all of the pagan stuff can remain. The all-seeing eye stays on the dollar bill. The Washington Monument's not going anywhere. Nobody's ever threatened the Statue of Liberty, even though Lady Liberty is based upon the Babylonian mother goddess of the ancient world. Mm-hmm. All of these are religious icons. And what they're doing is they're supplanting, they're getting rid of, just as they got rid of the teaching of creation in our schools, and then they put in this ancient Hindu belief about reincarnation, but they call it evolution, right? And they call it a science. And now that's what they're teaching in our schools. But evolutionary teaching doesn't have any scientific basis to it if you study it. It's all based in the ancient Hindu, Eastern mystical view about how, man begins as a tadpole or something, comes back as a frog, comes back as a goat, a dog, etc., and so on. And he's continually evolving upward toward godhood. That's where all of this stuff goes. And it is really what they believe. And they believe this is the true religion of the universe, as it were. Mm-hmm. And that anything that you're taught in the Bible is a counterfeit, or that it's been misunderstood by Christianity, as it were. So that's the real enemy for them. Mm-hmm.
Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, one of the things, just to support something that you guys talk a lot about, the idea of, Alex Jones says it's not about left or right, and I couldn't agree more. One of the things that I often tell people, say about George Bush, who presents himself as a Christian, and then he goes off and he's bowing down to this owl god out there in the Bohemian Grove. Mm-hmm. If the left-wing media really hated Bush, if they hated Bush and they wanted to stop him from becoming president, all they would have had to do is just run a week-long story on the Bohemian Grove, that the Bush family's a part of it, They're bowing down to Buddhas and this 40-foot owl god of Molech, and there's no way evangelical Christians would have ever voted for George Bush. They would have never voted for him. And so, the manipulation does happen on the left and on the right. And it's like Jesse Ventura says in that clip you guys have, that it's like professional wrestling. Mm-hmm. They're putting on a show, but they're not telling you all the things that they could tell you. So it's, I feel bad for my fellow Christians in America, because I feel like they're often the ones who are being lied to and manipulated, because Christianity is, 80% of the people in our country profess some form of Christianity. And so they often use Christianity in churches and so on to manipulate this agenda. And a lot of what we're trying to do through the Secret Mysteries series, which is why we talk about how, yes, Christians did come here in the beginning, with the Puritan Pilgrim movement, but there were with them these secret groups. And as Manly Hall says, they reclothed their pagan ideas in this garment of Christian phraseology, but the reason was so that they could manipulate the Christian population to carry out their secret agenda. That's what they've been doing for 200 years now.
What's next for you? Are you going to do a part 4? Are you going to do another film project? I mean, I love these movies, and I give them out to my friends and families, especially, on my mother's side. They're very Christian, they're very religious, but at the same time, a lot of them are Bush Christians. They don't understand that there is no difference between the left and right. They don't understand that their leaders are really into the occult. They don't have this broad overview of what you present. So I think it's a great eye-opener if I can actually get them to throw it into the DVD player. What's next for Chris Pinto and David Bay?
Well, for myself and David, we are we're doing our pre-production stuff for Secret Mysteries Part 4, which is, the working title is War of the World, and it takes this whole America series and how America is really being used by these secret groups to carry out the New World Order. And,
excellent. We'll come back. We're going to talk about that more on the other side. It's the Alex Jones Show. I'm Jason Burmis.